To bulk up as a skinny guy simply means eating more calories than you burn, but if it were that easy, we would all be looking like Giga Chads right now. So in this video, I'm going to go over the smartest way to bulk up as a skinny guy, and I'll start off with the most important principles and go down to the least important, like supplementation. Although in my experience, skinny guys especially benefit a whole lot more from the last steps because they struggle a lot with appetite. Now first up is the calorie intake. Now while calorie intake is still a field that requires a lot more research, there are a number of studies reporting more muscle growth the higher the calorie surplus is, with no established limit. A calorie surplus being the difference between the calories that you eat and burn throughout the day. Now there is a big caveat here though. Those who ate drastically more calories also gained quite a lot of extra fat mass on top of that muscle. So this establishes that a calorie surplus is probably optimal for muscle growth, but the question remains, how big of a calorie surplus before fat gain becomes too excessive? Because if you gain fat too fast, you will have to cut down faster, and in the long term, this might mean that you're building less muscle. Now, while research has tried to find how big your calorie surplus should be, I can't really give you a clear-cut answer, but that doesn't mean I can't give you any good recommendations. It is speculated by most coaches who train professional athletes that 250 to 500 calories is the sweet spot for most people. And I would say that skinny guys are best off trying to stick to the higher end to really get that extra muscle growth and swole look. And because right now you're probably not losing fat, that means that there is a high chance you're eating at maintenance calories, and this means that just adding some foods or shakes that add about 250 to 500 calories to what you normally eat in a day will probably already be enough as long as you keep eating the same things. Now this is your starting point. However, over time you will have to keep eating more and more because your body adapts and starts burning more calories as a result. So to know if you're doing well or if you need to eat more calories, you need to track your body weight. Most coaches recommend gaining about 1 to 2% of body weight each month to not gain too much fat, but to still add a solid amount of muscle. This roughly equates to that 250 to 500 calorie surplus. Now for that you want to track your weight daily if possible by measuring at the same time each day, preferably when you haven't eaten anything yet, and then note that down, for example, on your phone. If you use Excel or Google Sheets, it becomes a lot easier to see a trend in your weight gain, but you can also just see if you're roughly gaining about 1 to 2% of body weight by looking at the numbers. If you're not gaining enough weight, you know that you need to add calories by eating a little more, and if you're gaining too much, you should probably cut down a bit, because oftentimes longer bulking phases do tend to be better for long-term muscle growth. Now you can track calories, but I find that most people just give up on this after a week, which is why I recommend the approach of just intuitively trying to eat more than usual by just pushing yourself as you would do during training. If you think you can't do one more rep, for example, you sometimes just have to try, just like doing another rep of eating another bowl of cereal. I do still recommend trying to track everything for just a week, just so you have a general idea of what you normally eat and what foods contain what calories. Now after calories, we've got macronutrients. This is basically how much fat, carbohydrates and proteins you should consume. We can dig into detail here, but I'll keep it short and simple. Proteins are your most important macro. Without it, you're going to have a really hard time building muscle because they are the building blocks required to grow. They're at least as important as calories because otherwise you're just going to get fat on your bulk. So you want to eat around 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, or 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight every day, because less protein seems to also give less muscle growth. Now you also don't want to overeat on protein, because it is very filling and often used to lose weight and not gain it. And this is a very common mistake amongst beginners, because they do think that more is actually better. But more than the recommended dosage is most likely not going to build more muscle. Besides protein, generally you won't really have to make active decisions about carbs and fats. Just be aware that you do need a minimum amount of fat to regulate your hormones. Now here comes the most interesting part for skinny guys. Meal timing, which also includes frequency, is going to be your best friend. Most of the time you really struggle with appetite, and eating enough calories is definitely a big hassle. But just think of it like this. Your stomach can only take so much food before it gets too full. Now, if you had to eat all your calories in just one meal, would all of that get into your stomach? Well, for most people, the answer is no. So to maximize the space in your stomach, you want to eat meals more frequently. This means especially not skipping breakfast. Getting at least 4 meals is definitely advised. Some studies also report that a higher meal frequency increases appetite, which is a good thing for us, though this one even used a frequency of 14 meals as opposed to 3. Which does illustrate my point. All this also means that you want the sizes of your meals to be about evenly big throughout the day, and this also counts for protein and other macronutrients. Now, if you really struggle with appetite during a certain portion of the day, for most people this is in the morning, we can look at what types of food you are eating, because often to get those extra calories in, I and many others prefer to drink their calories, and some studies also suggest that liquid calories are less satiating than eating solid food. Now, I would however advise against just drinking pure sugar, and would advise trying to make a shake with proper things like fruits, vegetables, protein powder, full milk, and some scoops of ice cream for the added calories. That way you still get in some micronutrients instead of just eating pure junk. Now, I really want to make it clear here that yes, you can eat unhealthy foods when bulking. Of course, try to keep it at a minimum, but for me and many others, it's just nearly impossible to get all of that calories out of clean foods and drinks when bulking up. Now, this all means you also want to focus on calorie-dense foods like rice instead of potatoes, and even better would be bread. Or as another example, whole milk instead of skimmed milk. I'll put up a short list of regular calorie-dense foods which you can screenshot. These foods will fill you up less while containing more calories. Now, if you care about your health, you do want to eat some sort of vegetables to get some more micronutrients in, which you often don't get out of sugar and such. This isn't necessary for weight gain, so for bulking goals, I do recommend eating this at the end of every meal, because these often fill you up a lot without containing many calories. Now, I quickly want to say here that besides nutrition, you do need a solid training program, either for body weight exercise or at the gym, to really build muscle. Now, any workout program which is not a bro split that does focus on compound movements really works, as long as you stay consistent with the exercises for at least 8 to 10 weeks and focus on progressive overload. Now, everything that I have said is already going to give you 95% of your results, but let's take a look at supplements. I'm currently not sponsored by any supplement company, so I don't gain any money from anything that I say right now. and in fact I'll probably lose some sponsorship opportunities. First of all, a lot of supplements are pure garbage based on marketing and hype trying to get your money. However, there are a few that I think deserve the spotlight. First of all, creatine monohydrate is basically the god tier supplement of all supplements. It's cheap, has a lot of evidence behind it, and strongly increases performance. The only downside is that you have to take it daily for it to work, so you do have to be disciplined about it. Next, whey protein or casein protein is also close to god tier. You don't need it if you get enough protein out of your diet, but for me and most people that's really not the case. So taking a protein shake to instantly get 20 grams of protein is just very convenient. After these two, it's more or less minor improvements or supplements with heavy marketing, but nothing really to back up their claims. Caffeine, citrulline, beta-alanine, just to name a few that do work, and BCAAs, mass gainers, testosterone, video on that coming very soon, test boosters and fat burners are some I wouldn't spend any money on. Now, if you want the best results in the gym, make sure to watch this video right now because it's the most important video that I have ever made.